I was 37 when it all started. My name is Jeff. I wasn't rich, I wasn't a genius, I didn't come from money. I just worked day and night because I had a dream. For as long as I could remember, I loved fixing things. Radios, wires, speakers, anything with a current running through it. People in my neighborhood would bring their broken stuff to me, and I'd fix it with whatever tools I could get my hands on. I didn't charge much back then. Sometimes I didn't charge at all. I just wanted to be good at something, to matter. After years of working small jobs and saving every cent I could, I finally rented a tiny space on a busy street. Nothing special, just one counter, one stool, and a single shelf. But it was mine, my electronics store, the place where I would build something real. I called it Reed's Repairs. Catchy, right? It wasn't glamorous. It smelled like soldering wire and old batteries. But every screw I turned, every device I brought back to life felt like I was fixing a little piece of myself too. I didn't take vacations. I didn't go out much. While others partied, I stayed back, ordering parts online, learning from manuals, watching repair tutorials at 2 a.m. 14-hour shifts weren't unusual, they were normal. That was my life, and I was proud of it. Eventually, people started noticing. Word spread. Customers came back. Some brought their friends. Some brought donuts and coffee. Reed's Repairs became more than a shop. It became part of the community. I knew most of my customers by name. They knew mine, and I liked that. I liked being needed. And then there was Sarah, my wife. We met before the store even opened. She believed in me when the walls were still bare, and the cash register was just a second-hand box with a sticky drawer. She'd bring me lunch, sit with me during the slow hours, help clean up after closing. She saw the long nights, the stress, the dreams. We got married after I opened the store. She said she didn't mind the hours, didn't mind the struggle. She was in it with me. And I believed her. I trusted her with everything. 8 years. That's how long I poured myself into that store. Birthdays, anniversaries, half the time I forgot them. But I never forgot to open the shutters at 9 a.m., never forgot to check inventory, to reply to late-night messages from customers. That store was my heartbeat. I didn't know it then, but every small choice I made, every time I said, just one more hour, was pushing something else further away, something I didn't see coming, something I couldn't imagine would be waiting for me when I'd need her the most. People always say hard work pays off, that if you just keep your head down, grind every day, stay honest, eventually it'll all be worth it. And for a while I believed that. I lived it. After 2 years of scraping by, the shop finally started making enough to breathe a little. I remember the first time I came home and realized I didn't have to check if we had enough money for rent. That feeling, yes man, it was like I was finally allowed to exist. I started hiring help, just part-time at first. A high school kid named Lucas, bright, curious, respectful, reminded me of myself. I showed him how to rewire a speaker, how to talk to customers, how to treat every repair like it was his own. I didn't just want help. I wanted to build something people could depend on, even when it wasn't just me behind the counter. Sarah started handling the receipts. She said it was easier for her to keep track of things since she had more time. I trusted her. I was buried in the day-to-day. Orders, repairs, phone calls, walk-ins, emails. I didn't have time to sit and look through spreadsheets. If she said everything added up, I believed her. Why wouldn't I? We finally took a weekend off, our first in years, drove out to the coast, ate burgers by the beach, laughed like we were kids. That night she told me she was proud of me, said she always knew I could do it. I remember staring up at the ceiling of that cheap motel room thinking, this is it. This is what all that work was for. After that, business got better. Steady stream of customers. Some months were tight, but we made it work. We even talked about opening a second shop. I had the vision. She had the numbers. It felt like we were building an empire, our little empire. Nothing huge, nothing flashy, but it was ours. I started getting recognized in the neighborhood, the guy who fixes anything, the guy who never takes a day off. There was pride in that, maybe too much pride. I thought I was being a good man by working myself to the bone, providing, building a future. I didn't realize I was handing over everything else, piece by piece. Some nights I'd be too tired to eat. She'd already be in bed. I'd sit at the kitchen table, staring at receipts, orders, parts lists, thinking about how to grow, how to scale. Not once did I stop to think, what happens if I can't show up one day? What happens if I'm not there to open the door? But in my head, nothing could stop me. I was healthy, young, focused. I thought I had time. I thought trust was enough. I didn't know that while I was building a business, I was also handing over the keys to something much bigger than I understood. It's funny how trust doesn't come all at once. It builds over time, slowly, quietly. You don't really notice it until you've already given it away. By the 5th year, I wasn't running a small shop anymore. I was running a real business. We had regulars who swore by us, small offices who brought in bulk repairs, even a couple contracts with local schools. It wasn't huge money, but it was consistent. And in a business like mine, consistency means survival. Sarah took on more of the behind-the-scenes stuff. I didn't ask her to. She just started doing it, paying suppliers, managing inventory, checking invoices. She said it gave me more time to focus on the customers, and she wasn't wrong. The days were packed. I'd be covered in solder, bent over a table, trying to fix a power board, while 3 more customers waited their turn. I didn't have time to second-guess anything. She had access to the bank account. She had passwords to everything. Not because I handed them over like a contract, but because that's just what you do when you're married, when you believe you're a team. At least that's what I thought. We stopped talking about the little stuff. There wasn't time. She'd say, "Don't worry, I handled it." And I'd say, "Thank you." That was the exchange. Day after day, week after week. She took care of the numbers, I took care of the work. Sometimes she'd suggest changes, maybe switch suppliers, maybe cut back on some items that weren't selling. I nodded along, trusting that she'd thought it through. I didn't question her because she'd been with me since day one. She'd been there when I had nothing. There were moments, though. Small ones. Things that didn't sit right. Like when a supplier called me directly about a late payment and I was sure we'd already paid it. Or when a customer said they'd been overcharged for a repair and I had no record of it. I'd ask her about it, and she'd say it was a mix-up, that she'd take care of it. And she did. At least it looked like she did. I remember one night sitting alone in the shop, lights off, just me, and the soft hum of the fridge in the back. I was tired, real tired, but happy. I told myself this was what success looked like, a worn-out man in a dusty chair, proud of what he built. I never thought to double-check anything, never thought I needed to. We were a team. That was the whole point. That's what marriage is, right? Trusting the other person enough to let go of what you can't carry. So I let go, bit by bit, until all the weight was on her side, and I didn't even notice. I never thought something as simple as a headache could be the start of everything falling apart. It started small, just pressure behind the eyes, a little dizziness. I figured it was just exhaustion. I was working non-stop, barely sleeping, barely eating. I'd had headaches before. This one didn't seem different, until it was. I remember standing at the counter with a phone in one hand and a receipt in the other, and suddenly I couldn't read what was in front of me. The numbers blurred together. My hand went numb. I tried to speak, but the words didn't come out right. It was like my brain just stopped cooperating. Next thing I remember, I was lying on the floor and someone was calling my name over and over. A customer, I think. Lucas was there too. Someone called an ambulance. At the hospital, they said I had a mild stroke. Mild, they said, like it was just a warning shot. I was lucky, they told me. I caught it early. Could have been worse. But to me, it already was. I couldn't move my right hand properly. Couldn't walk without help. Couldn't even go to the bathroom without someone standing nearby. And the first thing I thought wasn't about my health, it was the shop. Who's going to open tomorrow? Who's going to deal with the repairs, the customers, the orders, the deliveries? I remember asking Sarah to bring my phone, my notepad, anything. She told me not to worry, said she'd handle it, said everything was under control. At first I was grateful. I needed the help. I couldn't even get out of bed on my own. Every hour was a mix of frustration and fear. The kind of fear you don't admit out loud. The fear that you might never go back to who you were before. But part of me was already trying to plan my return. Rehab, recovery, diet changes, whatever it took. I wasn't ready to let go. I just needed a few weeks, maybe a month. That's what I kept telling myself. Sarah came to visit every day. She smiled, brought me soup, told me stories about customers, said the store was fine, said Lucas was doing great, said people were asking about me, but I noticed something. Her visits got shorter. She stopped talking about the shop as much. If I asked about specific orders or money, she'd brush it off. "Don't stress," she'd say. "It's all taken care of." And I believed her. I had to. I didn't have another option. I thought this was just a pause, a bump in the road. I thought I'd be back at the counter in no time, joking with customers, fixing wires, restocking shelves. I had no idea what was really happening while I was lying in that hospital bed. No clue that while I was trying to heal, my entire life was being signed away, piece by piece, without me even knowing. Hospitals have a strange way of making you feel like time's standing still, but outside, everything keeps moving. Bills still come. Work still piles up. People still make decisions, whether you're there or not. I spent 2.5 weeks in that hospital, most of it just waiting for doctors, waiting for tests, waiting for my body to come back to me. But more than anything, I was waiting to get back to my life. I asked Sarah every day how things were going. She always said the same thing. "It's all good, Daniel. Just focus on getting better." She smiled, kissed my forehead, brought my favorite snacks. It all felt normal. But looking back, it wasn't. I asked her once if she was overwhelmed, told her she could slow things down if she needed to, close the shop for a few days, just until I got back. She shook her head and said she had it all handled. "I've been watching you do this for years," she said. "I know what to do." I wanted to believe her, so I did. One day, I asked her to bring me the ledger, the old black notebook I used to write everything down. I just wanted to feel connected to the place, wanted to see the numbers, maybe even offer some advice from the bed. She smiled and said she'd bring it tomorrow. Tomorrow never came. Instead, she started talking about how I should focus on my health, how maybe when I got out I could take a break. "Let someone else run things for a while," she said. "You deserve it." And yeah, maybe I did. But the way she said it didn't sit right, like she wasn't asking, like it was already decided. I started getting antsy, kept calling Lucas but he never answered, kept texting people from the shop. No response. I figured they were just busy. Maybe they didn't want to bother me. Maybe Sarah told them not to. I didn't know. But every time she came to visit, I felt more and more disconnected from the life I had built. The shop I gave everything to, it felt further away with every passing day, and I couldn't do anything about it. I asked her to bring me my laptop. She said she forgot. I asked again the next day. Still nothing. "Why do you need it?" she asked. "Just rest." It was like I wasn't supposed to be part of it anymore, like while I was lying there in a hospital gown, trying to learn how to hold a fork again, the life I knew was slipping through my fingers. And the worst part? I trusted her. Every single word, every promise, every smile. I didn't see it coming, not even close. When I finally got out of the hospital, I thought the hardest part was behind me. I was weak, sure. My right hand still trembled. Walking was slow, but I was free. I was ready to get back to work, to the shop, to the life I'd built with my own 2 hands. I remember walking up to the store that first morning. The windows were dusty, the sign looked faded, but the door was unlocked. That's when the first feeling hit me. Something wasn't right. Inside, the place looked empty. Shelves were bare. The counter was clean, almost too clean. I called out, but there was no one. I checked the register. Empty. No orders, no paperwork. Nothing. My phone rang. It was Sarah. She said, "I thought you wanted to rest a little longer." Her voice sounded calm, but I could hear something underneath it. a tension I hadn't noticed before. I told her I was coming by the shop. When she arrived, she was dressed nicely, like she was ready for an appointment. I asked her what was going on. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "We sold the business," she said. Just like that. I laughed at first. Maybe it was a joke, but she wasn't smiling anymore. She told me the store was sold while I was in the hospital, that she did it because the bills were piling up, the shop wasn't making enough money, and she thought it was the best way to protect us. I asked why she didn't tell me. She said she didn't want to worry me, that I was fragile, that she was trying to keep everything together. I sat down right there, in the middle of what used to be my dream. I felt like the ground had disappeared beneath me. All those years, all that work, gone. And I was just supposed to accept it. I wanted to scream, to cry, to demand answers, but mostly I just felt betrayed. By the one person I thought would never let me down, the one person I trusted more than myself. That's when the reality hit me. Sometimes the people closest to you aren't the ones who have your back. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones you don't see coming, and sometimes what you built with your hands can disappear overnight, without a single warning. I remember the moment I realized it wasn't just the business that was gone. It was everything I thought I had, everything I believed in, the trust, the future, the life I'd spent 8 years building from the ground up. At first, I was angry, furious. How could she do this to me? While I was fighting to stay alive, she was selling what I worked so hard for. I kept asking why, over and over. But the answers were thin, like they were made up on the spot. I was protecting us. I didn't want you to worry. It was for the best. But it didn't feel like protection. It felt like betrayal. I wanted to fight. I wanted to get the store back, to take control again. But it wasn't that simple. The papers were signed. The money was gone. The new owners didn't want to hear my story. They didn't care about the years of sweat and late nights. To them, it was just a business deal. And Sarah, she stopped answering my calls. She avoided me. The woman I trusted with my life became a stranger in my own home. I spent nights staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the little signs I missed. The phone calls she didn't return, the excuses she made, the way she looked at me when I asked questions. How could I have been so blind? But then came the hardest part, accepting that sometimes the people we love the most can hurt us the deepest. And that life doesn't always make sense, that sometimes the people who say they're protecting you are the ones who end up breaking everything. I had to decide what came next. Would I give up? Would I let this destroy me? Or would I find a way to rebuild, not just the business, but myself? Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. Not the money, not the store, but who you become after everything falls apart. Losing the business felt like losing a part of myself. But what hurt even more was feeling like I was losing my own identity. The man who built something from nothing suddenly felt invisible, like all those years of hard work didn't matter. I started asking myself questions I never thought I would. Who am I if not the guy who runs that shop? What's left when everything you've built disappears overnight? It wasn't just about the money. It was about pride, purpose, and the future I imagined for myself and my family. At first, I thought about giving up, letting it all go and moving on, maybe start over somewhere new, in a different city, a different life. But deep down, I knew that wasn't me. I wasn't the type to quit, not after all this time. So I began to rebuild, not just the business, but my sense of self. I started small, fixing old electronics around the house, helping friends with their gadgets, anything to remind myself I still had skills, that I still mattered. I reached out to old customers, told them what happened. Some were shocked, some sympathetic. A few offered help, referrals, even ideas for new projects. It wasn't the store I had before, but it was a start. I also had to learn to set boundaries with Sarah. It wasn't easy. The woman I loved and trusted was now someone I needed to be cautious around. I had to protect myself emotionally, even if it meant walking away from the past I thought we shared. I realized that rebuilding wasn't just about business. It was about healing, forgiving, and finding new purpose. I had to learn how to trust myself again, how to believe in the man I was becoming, not just the man I used to be. It wasn't quick, it wasn't easy, but slowly, piece by piece, I started to find my way back, not to what was lost, but to something new, something stronger. Rebuilding wasn't just about business or money, it was about trust. Learning how to trust again after being broken felt impossible at first. I kept asking myself, how do you open your heart to someone, to anything, after everything you thought was solid crumbles overnight? I spent a lot of time alone, trying to make sense of what happened, wondering if I missed the signs or if it was just blind luck that I never saw it coming. I realized that trusting isn't just about believing in others, it's about believing in yourself, believing that no matter what, you can stand up again. Slowly, I started making plans, not just for a new business, but for a new life. I went back to basics, relearned what made me passionate about electronics in the first place. It wasn't about the money or the success. It was about solving problems, helping people, creating something meaningful. I reached out to people I hadn't talked to in years, old mentors, suppliers, even customers. Some doors closed, some stayed open. Every conversation taught me something new, about business, about resilience, about who I am. I also learned to set boundaries, not just with others, but with myself. No more working 14-hour days until I dropped. No more ignoring warning signs. This time I was building something that could last, not just for me, but for the people I cared about. It wasn't just a second chance at a business, it was a second chance at life. I knew there would be hard days ahead, days when the pain of what I lost would hit hard. But I also knew I was stronger than that pain, because sometimes the hardest part isn't losing what you built, it's finding the courage to build again. And this time I was ready. Sometimes the hardest part of losing everything isn't the loss itself, it's learning how to forgive. Forgive the people who hurt you. Forgive yourself for trusting too much. Forgive the moments you wish you could take back. For a long time I held on to anger. It felt like the only thing keeping me grounded. But anger also kept me stuck. It made it impossible to move forward. I started to understand that forgiveness wasn't about forgetting what happened or pretending it was okay. It was about freeing myself, letting go of the weight that was holding me down. I had to forgive Sarah, not because what she did was right, but because I needed to find peace for myself. I began talking to people I trusted, friends, a counselor, even strangers who had been through similar things. Their stories helped me see that I wasn't alone, that betrayal, heartbreak, and loss are part of the human experience. What matters is how you rise after falling. I learned that forgiveness is a process. Some days it felt easy, other days impossible. But each step forward was a victory. Each time I let go a little more, I felt lighter. I also realized forgiveness wasn't just about Sarah or the past. It was about me. About reclaiming my life and my happiness on my own terms, not defined by what was taken from me, but by what I choose to create. It was a new beginning, one that started not with rebuilding a business, but rebuilding my heart, and that, more than anything, made me ready for whatever came next. It wasn't easy to trust again after everything I'd been through. Every time I met someone new, a little voice in my head asked, "Will this person take everything from you too?" It's hard to explain, but when you've been betrayed by someone so close, the world feels different, less safe, more uncertain. I started small, meeting a few people in the business, sharing just a little bit of my story. Some listened, some didn't. But slowly, I realized that not everyone was out to hurt me. Some wanted to help, some just wanted to see me succeed. That was a new feeling, hope. It made me start dreaming again, not just about money or success, but about trust and connection, about having a team, people I could count on who believed in me and what I was building. I also began to open up more about what happened, to friends, to family, even to myself. Talking about the pain, the betrayal, the loss. It was hard, but it was necessary. It helped me heal, helped me put things in perspective. I started building a new business, but this time it was different. It wasn't just mine anymore, it was a community. a group of people who had been through their own struggles but still believed in second chances. And with that community came new strength, new trust, a reminder that while we can't always control what happens to us, we can choose how we respond. We can choose to rebuild, to forgive, and to grow stronger than before. It's still a work in progress. Every day brings new challenges, new doubts. But I'm no longer alone, and that makes all the difference. I never imagined that losing my business would teach me so much about who I am and who I want to be. It's strange how losing something you thought defined you can actually set you free. I realized that my value isn't tied to a store or a balance sheet. It's tied to the person I am when no one is watching, the choices I make when everything is on the line. Starting over isn't easy, and it doesn't happen overnight. There are days when the past still haunts me, when I wonder if I'll ever feel that sense of security again. But then I remind myself that this new path is mine to shape. I get to decide what success looks like now, not based on what I lost, but on what I'm building. I've learned to be patient with myself, to celebrate small wins instead of waiting for the big break, to trust that even setbacks are part of the journey, not the end of it. And maybe the most important lesson of all is this: trust is fragile, but it's not broken forever. It can grow back, stronger and wiser, not just in others but in yourself. The future isn't written yet. It's waiting for me to take the first step. And this time, I'm ready to walk it, one day at a time, with hope, resilience, and a heart that's been broken but refuses to stop beating. There's a moment in everyone's life when everything changes, when the life you thought you knew slips through your fingers and you're left wondering what comes next. For me, that moment came when I walked into my empty store, the place I had poured my heart and soul into for 8 years, only to find it gone, sold, taken away while I was fighting just to stay alive. At first it felt like the end, like all my hard work, my sacrifices, my dreams. They didn't matter anymore. I was angry, hurt, lost. But somewhere deep inside, a small voice told me this wasn't the final chapter, that maybe, just maybe, there was a way forward. I had to ask myself, what kind of man do I want to be after this? A victim, a fighter, someone who lets the past define his future, or someone who takes the pain and turns it into strength? The truth is, I didn't know the answers right away. I stumbled. I fell. I doubted. But with every step, I learned more about resilience, about forgiveness, about hope. I learned that losing something doesn't mean losing yourself. It means finding parts of you you never knew existed. And now I'm standing at the edge of something new, not just a business but a new chapter, a chance to rebuild, to grow, to trust again. This story isn't just about what was lost. It's about what's still possible, and I'm ready to find out. I never expected to be here, starting over again after everything. It's a strange feeling, like standing at the bottom of a mountain you thought you'd already climbed. The past keeps pulling at me, whispering doubts and fears. But something inside says this isn't the end, it's just a new beginning. I've learned that life isn't about what you lose. It's about how you respond to loss, how you take the pieces left behind and build something new, something stronger. It's not easy. Some days I want to give up. Other days I feel unstoppable. I remind myself that I'm more than my mistakes, more than what was taken from me. I'm a man who's survived, who's fought back, who's still standing. And that means something. There's still a long road ahead. New challenges, new risks. But I'm ready. Ready to take it one step at a time, to rebuild not just a business, but my life. With hard work, patience, and maybe a little bit of faith. Because sometimes losing everything is the wake-up call you didn't know you needed. And sometimes the greatest success comes from starting over. Sometimes the hardest part isn't losing what you worked so hard to build, it's learning to trust again. After everything I went through, I wondered if I'd ever feel safe letting someone in, or even trusting myself. The fear of being hurt again was real, and it lingered like a shadow. But slowly I realized that trust isn't something you either have or don't have. It's something you rebuild, piece by piece, with patience and time. I had to start with small steps, trusting my own judgment, trusting that I could make better choices, and trusting that not everyone would betray me. There were moments when doubt crept back in, moments when the past felt too heavy to move beyond. But each time, I reminded myself why I had to keep going. Because life doesn't wait for us to be perfect. It moves forward whether we're ready or not. I began to see that trust is also about forgiveness, not just of others, but of myself. Forgiving myself for the mistakes, for the times I ignored the signs, for the moments I let fear control me. Forgiveness became the bridge between the pain of the past and the hope for the future. Now, trust feels different. It's not blind or reckless. It's cautious but open. It's learning to believe in people again, but also believing in my own strength to protect what matters. And with that trust, I'm no longer defined by what I lost, but by who I've become. Ready to face whatever comes next, with open eyes and a steady heart. There's a moment when you realize that everything you thought was solid can crumble in an instant. When the life you built with your own hands disappears, and you're left staring at what's left or what's not left. That moment hits harder than anything I've ever felt. It shakes you to your core and forces you to ask questions you never wanted to face. Who am I without my business? Without the hours, the sweat, the dreams I poured into it? What does it mean to lose not just a store, but a part of yourself? And most of all, how do you move forward when the person you trusted most is the one who broke it all? I spent countless nights wrestling with these questions, angry, confused, heartbroken. But somewhere in that pain, I began to understand something important. That loss isn't just an ending, it's also a beginning, a chance to discover parts of yourself you never knew existed. It's easy to feel defeated, to want to give up, but there's a choice: to let the loss define you, or to let it strengthen you, to fall apart, or to rise again. I'm not going to pretend it was easy. It wasn't. The road ahead is still uncertain, but I'm starting to see a path forward, not the one I planned, but one I'm ready to walk. Because sometimes the greatest strength comes from the moments we think will break us. And maybe, just maybe, this is the start of something new. When everything you've worked for disappears, it feels like your whole world is collapsing. But what I learned is that sometimes, when the world falls apart, it makes room for something new. It's not about forgetting the past or pretending the pain didn't happen. It's about accepting it and deciding what comes next. I started to understand that success isn't just about the business or the money. It's about resilience, about how you face the challenges no one sees. It's about waking up every day and choosing to keep going, even when the future is uncertain. I had to relearn who I was outside of the store, the man behind the work ethic, behind the long hours and late nights. That man was still there. Maybe a little bruised, maybe a little tired, but still standing. I began to rebuild, not just with my hands, but with my mind and my heart. I reached out to old friends, made new connections, and slowly found new opportunities. Each small step forward was a victory, proof that I could create again. It wasn't easy, and it won't be easy. But I'm learning that sometimes the greatest successes come after the hardest falls, that losing everything can lead to finding yourself. And that's a story worth telling. There's a strange kind of strength that comes from losing everything you thought mattered. It's not the strength of success or wealth, but something deeper, something quieter. It's the strength to keep going when nothing feels certain, to believe in yourself when the world feels like it's against you. I never imagined I would be here standing at the edge of a new beginning after losing so much. But here I am, and I've realized that life isn't about holding on to what's gone. It's about embracing what's possible. The future is still uncertain. There will be challenges, setbacks, and moments when I question if I'm on the right path. But I'm no longer afraid of those moments. I know now that they're part of the journey. What happened to my business taught me more than any success ever could. It taught me about resilience, about forgiveness, and about the power of hope. It showed me that even in loss, there's the chance to find something new, something better. So I'm ready to build again, to trust again, to live again. Not because I have to, but because I choose to. Because this story isn't just about what was lost, it's about everything still waiting to be found. This is the end of my story, and thank you for watching. And if you like this kind of content, kindly leave us a like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Thank you.